All right, so today's lesson is about this artistic thinking process. And right now, what I want you to do is go ahead and get out your sketchbooks or get a new blank piece of paper and label it artistic thinking process. Write the date, and then you're going to write your name. And then once that is labeled, you are going to write down or copy down this chart that you see on this slide. So what this is this is the artistic thinking process. And it is developed by Melissa Purtee. And she also does a lot of work with what we call TAB, or Teaching for Artistic Behaviors. So sometimes this is also called the design thinking process. And what it is it's a 4-step process that artists and designers go through when they create. So the first step is inspiration. And if you'd like to, on your page, just number it 1, 2, 3, 4. But the first one's inspiration. When artists start to make artwork, they say, hey, what am I going to make artwork about? What do I feel like creating? What am I going to make? So there's a lot of places artists can get inspiration from. They can look at the media, say, oh, hey, I want to do a graphite drawing. So I'm going to start there. It could be the process. It could be a theme, such as the theme that you have for this artwork is kind of like a self-portrait that doesn't include a face. It's just going to be using objects that kind of describe who you are. You could get inspiration from guiding questions, new skills, experience. So once you're inspired, then you have to start developing what you want to make. So the development stage, this is where a lot of the work goes into your artwork. So this is the planning phase. This is researching, sketching, list making, experimenting, find resources, make a visual journal, a mind map, model, brainstorm, practice, demonstration. So as you develop your idea, it's like you're pulling in resources from everywhere. And then you're going to kind of hone in on what you want to make, and then you're ready for the creation phase. So once you've been inspired, you've developed your idea, then you're going to go on to that creation. So when you create, you're producing a piece of artwork. You reflect on it, you revise it, you analyze it, you improve it, you rethink it. So all of those things go into the creation phase. And then when you're finished, you reflect, like, am I happy with this? Was it successful? And you present it. So how are you going to present it? Is it a blog? Is it like an actual gallery opening? Are you going to put it out there on the internet, Instagram? And then the artist is ready to start over again. So make sure you have those 4 steps. If you need to pause this in order to copy it before you go on, go ahead and do that. All right, so for our project, I'm kind of giving you the inspiration, which is fine for beginning artists. More advanced artists, they don't need prompts or kind of prescribed situations for their artwork. They just instantly come up with it. But I find this is the hardest part of art making for new artists or new art students, is getting inspiration. So we're just kind of thinking about, how do artists come up with ideas? How do they decide to take an idea and develop it? And there's a lot of ways that artists can be inspired. We talked about it in the last slide. But I'm going to give you a prompt for this project. And there's a lot of different ways to interpret this. So I want you to keep your mind open that they don't always have to look the same. So what your job is to create a piece of artwork that uses drawing of your hands and another 3D object to tell a story about who you are. So that's that first spark of inspiration. That's your job on this piece of artwork. So hopefully, you know what you're interested in. But if you have a hard time coming up with ideas, we're going to use the next slide and the next steps to come up with ideas. So here's an example of finished artwork by a student. And what I want you to see here is that there are many different hands here. It's all the same student's hand, and there's many drawings of a feather, but they're all different angles and different viewpoints. So they're combined together in a composition. So the artist had to think about what they wanted to include and what that was going to say about them. And then they had to do some development of their idea, practice their skills, look at how they were going to lay it out, and then create it. Here's another piece by an artist. If you look at this, you might have an idea about what this artist likes to do in their free time, besides making art. So this artist is holding I believe it's a bishop. It could be a queen, a chess piece. So this artist probably likes to play chess. Again, there are many different hand positions that this artist has, and there's also a very complex pattern in the background. So those are just two examples of finished artworks by students. Here's what we're going to do next. So on that piece of sketchbook paper that you wrote the 4 steps, the inspire, develop, create, and then reflect and present, just a little bit farther down, we're going to complete these 4 steps. Now, these are not the 4 steps of making the artwork. This is actually in the develop phase. So what I'm going to ask you to do is make a mind map of yourself and what makes you you. So these are going to be, this is a way to brainstorm or come up with ideas that you can use for this project. After you make that mind map on the paper, and you might have to flip over to the next page, you're going to choose one aspect that you want to communicate about yourself. And number 3, you're going to create a list of 5 3D objects that describe a part of who you are. Not art, sorry. Stick to handheld or smallish sized items. Hint, take a look back at your autobiographical artwork. And then you're going to choose one object that you will use for this project. So that's the development stage that we're going to work on today. What I want you to see and watch in this next slide is a quick demonstration about how to make a mind map. So here we go. We're going to watch this and then I'll come back. All right, in this demonstration, I'm going to go over how to make a mind map. A lot of teachers use this and a lot of artists use this as a way to brainstorm or get inspired and develop an idea. So for the example today, I'm going to be creating a mind map that explores the idea or develops the idea of myself. So before I get started, I'm going to have my paper set up. I like to have a lot of different colors of markers and pens and pencils and things to draw and color with, but you can certainly do this with only just a regular pen or pencil. So the first thing you're going to do is, like I said, choose that subject, the concept. That's the most important that you're trying to kind of flesh out and get more ideas for. So like I said, I'm doing one for myself. So I am going to go ahead and write my name in the middle. Here it is, Lizzie. So you don't have to make this super duper neat. Your teacher might ask you to do things like use good craftsmanship or to use certain kinds of types of drawings or things like that. But in this case, I'm just going to keep it really basic. And I'm going to go ahead and just draw a circle around it, or it could be a box. Now, because this is my main idea, I do want it to stand out. So I'm going to use a highlighter. And then I'm also just going to make my letters a little thicker. Now, whenever I get stuck on something, like I'm trying to come up with a lot of different ideas, but it's just not happening, then I'll come back and embellish some drawings or some of the words that I already have. So it's not essential that you do it right when you start. So there is my name. Since this is a mind map about myself, I'm going to kind of break it down into 3 different categories. Things that I do, things that are important to me, and things I like. So the artwork that I am planning for or trying to develop is going to be somewhat of a self-portrait, but the catch is, in this self-portrait, I can't show my face. I can only use objects. So that's the goal of this mind map. But right now, I'm not worried about just listing objects. I am kind of going to just start to work in these areas. Things that I do. Now, you can use arrows. You can add embellishments, drawings, doodles. Or you can just keep it plain, kind of like legs that are coming out or arms, branches that are coming out. So let's say I'm going to go ahead and work on the one that is things that are important to me. So one thing that's important to me is my family. Another thing that is important to me is my health. Now, some of these things that I list that are important to me might overlap with things that I like or things that I do. And that's fine. I'll show you in a minute how I can connect this web. Other things that are important to me, and this is not really a concrete thing, but kindness. It's important that people are kind to each other. Another thing that is important to me, I guess it would go under my family. I'm like really quickly starting to develop this family. So you might notice that some of these branches are going to be easier for you and some are going to be harder. But right now I'm already starting to think of my family. I think of my husband and my kids. I also think of like my mom and dad. So I haven't really left myself a lot of room here. I'm going to kind of sprout another one out. My heritage. And right away I start to like think about things now that kind of shoot off these. So for my kids, I could go with just their names. Isla, Ava. For my heritage, I can think about things like my grandparents. I think about culturally, my grandparents are German and Swedish. So there is probably going to be one that kind of draws your attention a little bit more. So as I'm kind of pausing here, I'm going to go back to things that are important and circle these, maybe highlight. Now, I don't just have to use words. I can use pictures or little drawings or doodles. So let's say I was going to work on this health one. So maybe working out. And when I think of working out, there's a whole list of things that I do in order to work out. So one of those things is lifting weights. So maybe instead of writing lifting weights, because I'm an art student / teacher, I could go ahead and draw a barbell. Something else, working out, I need to wear shoes. So these don't have to be the best pictures. Like this drawing is pretty quick. It's not like my exact shoe. I could think about other words. Cardio. All right, so hopefully you get a pretty good idea of how to make a mind map. I'm not going to give you a certain number of terms and things, but the more that you add on there, the more, the easier it's going to be to do the next phase. So what I'm asking you to do today for the rest of the class period is to make a mind map of yourself and what makes you you. So start with those 3 branches. Those are the same 3 branches we used for the autobiographical artwork. And start to flesh out and branch out. So what I ended up doing with my mind map and the thing that I was interested in is I chose one aspect that I want to communicate about myself. So what I did is I kind of thought back to the autobiographical artwork, and I kind of just looked around my room and my house at the objects that I have, because I'm trying to find objects that are 3-dimensional and pretty small that I can hold. So I chose my Swedish heritage. So once I choose my Swedish heritage, I'm going to write that for number 2. And then number 3, I'm going to make a list of 5 3D objects. So I just started to go around my house. The first thing I found was a Dala horse. So this is a little wooden Swedish horse called a Dala horse. Another thing that I found that kind of represents my heritage is this glass, red glass pendant, kind of like a heart shape. And this is important to me because my mom gave it to me. Red is a pretty important color in Swedish culture. And then I also found some paprika, so often used in baking. So those are 3 objects, and I need a total of 5 that I could possibly use for this project. And it's good to like grab them and kind of think about, would I be able to draw this? Is this really represent my Swedish heritage? I mean, if somebody sees this, they might not get it. Or if they see this, even though I have that connection to myself, they might not totally understand. So after you list 5 different items that you could use, then for number 4, you're going to choose one object that you want to do this project with. So I am going to go ahead and say my Dala horse. This is the thing. I can find many ways to hold it in my hand. There are a lot of different viewpoints. Please think about what makes you you, what makes you unique. The difficult thing might be for some of you, let's say you're really into sports and you would want to do like a basketball and a football. Well, those are not really small. They're handheld, but they're really large. So you need something that you could fit in the palm of your hand, that whole thing. So if it's sports and you really like basketball, you can think about maybe some of the equipment that you need, or let's say you got a medal for a certain tournament, or maybe just one of your basketball socks. They've got like cool designs on them. So I want you to come up with a list of 5 objects there that really are smallish sized, but could be used for this assignment for your final project. And then choose that final one, write it for number 4, and that's it. Take a picture of those notes. Hopefully they can all fit on one page, but if not, if they're on 2 pages, take a picture and then submit.